I came home to find my dog missing. My mom said, "We sold him. Your brother's kids needed new phones. You'll be fine." I asked once, "Where is he?" They laughed it off. I didn't. 2 days later, I tracked him down and bought him back. The next day, when they realized what I had done, it made them scream. I still replay that moment in my head sometimes. I just pulled into my driveway after 3 brutal days at a work conference in Chicago. All I wanted was to hear Max's happy barks, to feel that golden blur of fur greet me like he always did. But there was nothing, just this chilling silence. A cold dread settled in my stomach. No tail wags, no happy whimpers from behind the door. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. I fumbled with my keys, calling his name as I stepped inside. And there she was, my mother, Carol, sitting calmly at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday. When I asked her where Max was, she just looked up, with this casual, almost indifferent expression, and said the words that absolutely shattered my world. "We sold him," Carol said. Just like that. Didn't even bother to look up from her newspaper. Danny's girls needed new phones for school, so we got $800 for that dog. "You'll be fine, Leonard. It's just a dog." My work bag slid off my shoulder, hitting the floor with a dull thud. I was frozen. Max. My Max 8 years. 8 years by my side. Through college graduation, my first job, the gut-wrenching breakup with Jessica, every single lonely night when anxiety clawed at me. He wasn't just some dog. He was family. He was my anchor. You sold my dog?" The words were barely a whisper. I couldn't process it. My brain just wouldn't compute. Danny said, "You're never home anyway," Carol continued, turning a page. Those girls deserved something nice for once. Emma and Sophie have been using those old flip phones forever. Then my brother, Danny, walked in, grinning like he'd won the lottery. 35 years old, still living upstairs in his childhood bedroom, unemployed for 8 months, completely dependent on our parents. His twin daughters, both 14, lived with their mom most of the time, but stayed here every other weekend. "Hey, little brother," Danny chirped, grabbing a beer. "Don't look so tragic. Max is probably happier with kids who actually have time to play with him." "Where is he?" My voice was rising now. "Who did you sell him to?" "Some nice family from across town," Carol answered. "The Hendersons. They have children who will appreciate him properly." My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, immediately searching for Henderson in the local directory. There were 12 Hendersons. My heart pounded with every single dial tone. "Hi, this is Leonard Martinez. I'm looking for the family who recently bought a golden retriever named Max. My family sold him by mistake while I was away." The first 3 calls went nowhere. The 4th, someone hung up on me. By the 6th call, I was desperate. "Leonard, stop being so dramatic," Carol said, watching me pace. "We told them you couldn't take care of him anymore because of work. They're not going to give him back now." "You told them what?" The phone slipped from my hand, clattering loudly on the tile. Danny just laughed, taking a long swig of his beer. "We had to give them a reason, man. Can't just say we needed quick cash for phones. Made it sound like you were being responsible, giving up a pet you couldn't handle. But that's not true." I warred. "Max is everything to me. I've never missed a feeding, never skipped a walk, never left him alone for more than 8 hours." "Calm down, son," my father, Frank, said, appearing in the doorway. He looked so uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. "What's done is done. Dad, please tell me you didn't go along with this." Frank's silence. That was the answer. My own father had handed Max over to strangers. The betrayal was crushing, a fresh wound on top of everything else. I spent the next hour calling every Henderson in the phone book, the desperation growing with each dead end. Finally, I found them. Mrs. Henderson answered on the 3rd ring. "Oh yes, we bought Max yesterday," she said cheerfully. "Such a sweet dog." She even mentioned my family had explained I couldn't care for him due to work. "We're so happy to give him a good home." "Ma'am, I'm Leonard, Max's actual owner. My family sold him without my permission while I was away. I need him back." There was a long, heavy pause. "I'm sorry, but we paid good money for this dog. Our children are already attached. We can't just give him away." "I'll pay you back exactly what you paid," I pleaded, "plus extra for your trouble." "I'm afraid that's not possible. We consider Max part of our family now." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, completely helpless. In the eyes of the law, Max was just property. And because he lived in my parents' house, and they'd been helping with bills over the years. They technically had the legal right to sell him. That evening, Danny showed up for dinner with his daughters, Emma and Sophie. Both of them were clutching brand new iPhone 14s in sparkly cases. They barely looked up from their screens as they walked past me, totally absorbed in setting up their social media. "See how happy they are," Danny said, ruffling Emma's hair. "This worked out perfectly for everyone." "Everyone except Max," I said quietly, the words tasting like ash. "Dogs adapt," Carol said, setting plates on the table. "He'll be fine with his new family." But I knew Max better than anyone. He was a sensitive dog who'd never lived anywhere but our house. He slept in my room every night, knew my schedule perfectly, waited by the window for me. The thought of him confused and scared in a strange house, with strange people, my chest tightened so much I thought I'd choke. I excused myself from dinner, went to my old bedroom, and just sat there, holding Max's favorite squeaky ball that I'd found under my bed. The house was empty without the click-clack of his claws on the hardwood, without his warm presence at my feet. My family hadn't just sold my dog. They'd sold my best friend, my emotional support. 8 years of unconditional love for $800 worth of phones that Emma and Sophie would probably break or lose in 6 months. As I fell asleep that night, one decision solidified in my mind. I was going to find Max, and I was going to bring him home, no matter what it took. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I never did unless I was genuinely ill. My manager, David, was understanding when I explained it was a family emergency. I just couldn't bring myself to say my family had sold my dog while I was representing the company at a conference. I started at the Henderson house on Maple Street. Modest, 2-story, small front yard. I rang the doorbell 3 times. No answer. Their driveway was empty. No Max. I peered through a gap in the fence. The backyard was empty too. I felt like a stalker, but I drove to the end of the block and parked, just watching. After 2 agonizing hours, a blue Honda Civic pulled in. A woman in her 40s got out, followed by 2 kids, maybe 10 and 12. Still no Max. I approached Mrs. Henderson as she unloaded groceries. "Excuse me, Mrs. Henderson. I'm Leonard Martinez. We spoke yesterday about Max." Recognition, then annoyance, dawned on her face. "I told you yesterday we're keeping the dog. Please don't show up at our house again. I just need to see him," I pleaded. "To know he's okay. He's been my companion for 8 years." "He's fine," she said curtly, grabbing bags and heading for the door. "He's adjusting well. Can I just see him for 5 minutes? I brought some of his favorite treats." She stopped, turned, her expression softening slightly. "Look, I understand this is hard for you, but we paid for this dog fairly. Your family was very clear that you couldn't take care of him anymore. We're giving him a good home with children who love animals. But I never agreed to sell him. I insisted. I was away on a work trip. They had no right to make that decision." "That sounds like a family matter you need to work out with them," she said. "Max belongs to us now." She disappeared inside, leaving me utterly powerless. I drove home feeling defeated, but my family's reaction only made it worse. Danny was sprawled on the couch, laughing at something on TV. His daughters, still glued to their phones. "How's the great dog hunt going?" he asked sarcastically. "This isn't funny, Danny. Max is suffering." "Oh, please," Carol called from the kitchen. "He's probably already forgotten about you. Dogs live in the moment." "That's not true, and you know it." I shot back. "Max knows my voice, my smell, my routine. He's probably wondering why I abandoned him." "You're being dramatic," Carol repeated, her favorite phrase whenever I showed any emotion. "It's just a dog, Leonard. You can get another one." "I don't want another one. I want Max." Emma looked up from her phone for the first time all day. "Mom says you're being weird about a dog," she said to me. "Why don't you just buy a puppy or something?" I stared at my 14-year-old niece. She had no concept. To her, Max was as replaceable as last year's iPhone. I spent the rest of the day driving around the Hendersons neighborhood, hoping to spot Max. I posted on every local Facebook group, sharing his picture. The support was overwhelming, but I also faced criticism. The new family paid for the dog legally. "You can't just demand him back," one person commented. I tried to explain I never consented, but without proof, it was my word against my family's. That evening, I went to Peterson's pet store, the biggest one around, hoping the Hendersons might shop there. The manager, Patricia, remembered them. "Oh, yes, the family with the golden retriever," she said. They were in here yesterday buying supplies. Seemed like nice people. What kind of supplies? I asked, a flicker of hope. Basic stuff, she said. A collar, some food, a few toys. The kids seemed excited. She didn't think they asked about care or training, just basic items. I left, slightly relieved Max had some supplies, but the image of him in a strange house, wondering where I was, haunted me. My girlfriend Sarah called that night as I sat in my car outside the Henderson house again, just hoping for a glimpse of Max. Leonard, you need to accept that this situation is out of your control, she said. I know you love Max, but you're becoming obsessed. Wouldn't you be obsessed if someone sold your cat while you were away? That's different. Whiskers lives in my apartment. Max lived in your parents' house. But he's my dog. I insisted. I pay for his food, his vet bills, his grooming. I take care of him every day. Then maybe you should have gotten your own place where your family couldn't make decisions about him. Sarah's words stung. They held a cruel truth. At 28, I was still at home, saving for a down payment, planning to move out with Max within the year. Now, that plan felt like ashes. When I got home that night, I found Max's favorite rope toy in the garage trash can. Carol had just thrown it away, like 8 years of memories meant nothing. I pulled it out, brushing off coffee grounds and potato peels, holding it to my chest. Frank appeared in the garage doorway, looking more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen him. Son, I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Your mother and Danny, they've been planning this for weeks. What do you mean? They have a group text chat without you. They've been discussing selling Max since last month, waiting for you to go out of town so they could do it without confrontation. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a calculated, cold-blooded plan to get rid of the most important thing in my life. Why didn't you stop them? I asked, my voice raw. Frank looked down at his feet. Your mother can be very persuasive. And Danny's been struggling. The girls needed phones for school. So you sacrificed my happiness for Danny's convenience? I thought you'd understand eventually. You're the responsible one, Leonard. You always land on your feet. This time I won't, I said. Not without Max. That night, my resolve hardened. I wasn't just going to find Max. I was going to bring him home, no matter what. 3 days of searching finally paid off. I spotted Mrs. Henderson's blue Honda Civic at Oakwood Heights Elementary School. I waited for school to let out, then followed them home at a safe distance. This time, as they pulled into their driveway, I heard it. Barking. I parked across the street, watching the Henderson kids run inside without a glance back. But I saw movement in the backyard. A golden shape, pacing behind the wooden fence. I waited until the family was fully inside, then approached the back fence from the alley. Through a gap in the boards, I saw him. Max. But he looked wrong. His normally glossy golden coat was dull, matted. He'd lost weight. His usual energetic demeanor replaced by listless pacing around a small doghouse. Max, I whispered through the fence. His head snapped up. He knew my voice. He rushed to the fence, whimpering, pawing at the boards. I stuck my fingers through the gap. He licked them frantically, his whole body trembling with excitement and confusion. I'm going to get you out of here, buddy, I promised, tears welling up. I'm so sorry this happened. Max was chained to the doghouse, maybe 10 feet of slack. Enough to move a little, but not to explore, not for proper shelter. His metal food bowl was empty, except for stagnant water and leaves. I took pictures with my phone, documenting everything. He looked malnourished, stressed. Nothing like the healthy, happy dog I'd left just 5 days ago. I waited until evening, then knocked on the Hendersons' front door. Mr. Henderson answered this time, a large man in his 50s with graying hair and suspicious eyes. You're the guy who keeps bothering my wife about our dog, he said before I could speak. Sir, I just saw Max in your backyard, and I'm concerned about his condition. He's lost weight, and he's chained up constantly. That dog is fine, Mr. Henderson said firmly. He's getting used to his new home. I'd like to offer you double what you paid for him. $1,600, cash. His expression hardened. He's not for sale. We bought him fair and square, and our kids are attached to him now. Your kids don't seem to be spending any time with him. He's been alone in the yard every time I've driven by. Are you stalking our house? Mr. Henderson stepped closer, his voice rising. Because if you don't stop harassing my family, I'm calling the police. I just want my dog back, I said, my voice breaking. He's not adapting well to this situation. Your dog? According to your family, you couldn't take care of him anymore. We're doing you a favor by giving him a good home. That's not true. My family lied to you. I never agreed to sell Max. Mr. Henderson laughed harshly. Sounds like you need to work out your family problems somewhere else. Stay away from our property. He slammed the door in my face. I stood there, more helpless than ever. I drove home in a rage. A quiet, seething rage. Ready to confront my family about the lies they'd told. But when I walked in, there were Danny and his daughters, showing off their new phones to Carol and Frank, like they'd won the lottery. Look, Grandma, Emma chirped, holding up her phone. I can take videos and put filters on them and share them with all my friends. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Carol beamed. Uncle Leonard, Sophie called out, seeing me. Look at my new phone. Dad got it for us with money from selling that old dog. The casual way she said it. That old dog. Like Max was just some piece of junk cleared out of the garage. My vision blurred with anger. That old dog was my best friend, I said quietly. Don't be so dramatic, Danny said, not looking up from his phone. Dogs are replaceable. Family is forever. You're not acting like family. I shot back. We are family, Carol interjected. And family looks out for each other. Those girls needed phones more than you needed that dog. Max isn't just a want, Mom. He's my emotional support animal. He helps me deal with anxiety and depression. You know this. Frank finally looked up from the television. Maybe it's time you learn to deal with those things on your own, son. You're almost 30 years old. The lack of empathy in his voice was devastating. These people who claimed to love me, who had raised me, had no understanding of what they'd taken away. To them, Max was just an inconvenience, an asset to be converted into something useful. That night, I called my cousin Jake, the only family member who'd ever truly understood me. Jake lived 2 hours away, always the rebel, the one who called out Frank and Carol when they were being unreasonable. They did what? Jake exploded when I explained. That's insane, Leonard. Even for them, that's insane. I don't know what to do, I admitted. The Hendersons won't sell him back, and my family thinks I'm being dramatic. You're not being dramatic. If someone sold my dog while I was away, I'd lose my mind. Want me to drive down there and talk some sense into them? I don't think talking is going to work anymore. Jake was quiet for a moment. What's the dog's condition like? Is he being treated well? I described what I'd seen in the backyard. Jake's tone turned serious. That sounds like neglect, cousin. If you can document that they're not providing proper care, you might have grounds to get him back. A spark of hope. How? Animal control for starters. And if they're planning to resell him, that might be considered animal trafficking, depending on how they acquired him. For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. Maybe there was a way to save Max that didn't involve begging. I spent the rest of the night researching animal welfare laws, documentation requirements, complaint procedures. If the Hendersons weren't going to return Max willingly, I'd find another way. But first, I needed to know exactly what was happening to him in that backyard. The next morning, I parked across the street from the Henderson house, documenting everything. The family left at 7:45. Max barked frantically, straining against his chain as their car disappeared. For the next 8 hours, he was alone, pacing in circles, barking at passers-by, clearly distressed. No one came to check on him, refill his water, or let him inside. When they returned at 4:30, the kids ran straight in, ignoring Max's excited barks. Mrs. Henderson went inside. Mr. Henderson spent 2 minutes in the backyard, dumping dry kibble into Max's bowl and spraying water from a garden hose into his dish. Then he, too, went inside. Max was alone again. This pattern continued for 3 days. Max was treated like an outdoor decoration. No walks, no playtime, no interaction beyond brief feeding. It was absolutely heartbreaking to watch. I started talking to neighbors on the Henderson street. Mrs. Peterson, next door, was eager to talk. That poor animal barks all day long, she said. Starts at 7 in the morning and doesn't stop until they come home. I've been thinking about calling someone. How long has this been going on? They got the dog about a week ago. At first, I thought it was just an adjustment period, but it's getting worse, not better. Another neighbor, Mr. Collins, from across the street, had similar observations. The dog looks thin to me, he said, and I've never seen those kids play with him. They just ignore him completely. I documented these conversations, building my case for neglect. But what truly broke my heart was learning from Mrs. Peterson that Max howled every night around 10, the exact time I used to take him for his evening walk. It's the saddest sound, she said, like he's calling for someone who's not coming. That evening, I confronted my family again, armed with photos and witness statements. Look at these pictures, I said, showing them my phone. He's lost at least 10 pounds. He's chained up constantly with no interaction. Carol glanced dismissively. He looks fine to me. Dogs are supposed to live outside. Not Max. He's been an indoor dog his whole life. He sleeps in my room every night. Well, maybe it's good for him to learn some independence, Danny said, not looking away from the TV. He's not learning independence. He's suffering from neglect and separation anxiety. You're being ridiculous, Carol snapped. Stop trying to make us feel guilty for doing what was best for everyone. Best for everyone except Max, I said. And except me. Frank finally spoke up again. Leonard, you need to accept that this situation is permanent. The dog belongs to someone else now. The dog has a name, I said, my voice tight. His name is Max, and he's been part of this family for 8 years. He's been your pet for 8 years, Carol corrected. There's a difference. That was it. That was the fundamental disconnect. To my family, Max was just an animal. To me, he was a family member. With feelings, memories, emotional needs. We were never going to see this the same way. My girlfriend Sarah called while I was sitting in my car outside the Henderson house that evening. Leonard, I'm worried about you, she said. You've been obsessing over this dog for a week now. It's not healthy. How is wanting to rescue my best friend unhealthy? Because you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and you've missed 3 days of work. That dog is not worth destroying your life over. That dog saved my life, I said quietly. When I was going through depression after college, Max was the only reason I got out of bed some days. But you're not depressed anymore. You have a good job, a relationship, goals for the future. You don't need a dog to define your happiness. It's not about need, I tried to explain. It's about love and loyalty and commitment. Sometimes love means letting go, Sarah said. And sometimes love means fighting for what matters, even when everyone else thinks you're crazy. A long pause. Maybe we should take a break, Sarah said finally. Until you work through whatever this is. Whatever this is. I scoffed. You mean grief? You mean betrayal by people I trusted? I mean obsession. You're choosing a dog over your relationships with real people. After she hung up, I sat there, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. My family had betrayed me. My girlfriend had abandoned me. And Max was suffering because of decisions I had no power to reverse. But as I watched Max pace in his small circle behind the fence, I made another decision. I didn't care if everyone thought I was obsessed, unreasonable, or dramatic. Max had never given up on me during my darkest moments. I wasn't going to give up on him now. I called Jake and asked him to drive down for the weekend. It was time to stop playing by everyone else's rules. Jake arrived Friday evening, radiating a determination that matched my own. 32, for years older than me. Always the family member willing to challenge our parents. He took one look at my photos of Max and shook his head in disgust. This is animal abuse, pure and simple, he said. I can't believe Frank and Carol thought this was acceptable. They think I'm overreacting. You're underreacting, if you ask me. If someone did this to my dog, I'd have gotten him back by now, one way or another. Saturday morning, we drove to the Henderson house. Jake wanted to see it firsthand. We parked across the street and watched as the family left for what looked like a shopping trip. There, I said, pointing to the backyard where Max was visible through the fence gaps. You can see how thin he's gotten. Jake pulled out a pair of binoculars he'd brought. He studied the backyard carefully. After several minutes, he handed them to me, his expression grim. Leonard, that dog is in worse shape than your photos show. Look at his ribs. You can see them clearly from here. I adjusted the binoculars. My stomach dropped. Max looked skeletal. His golden coat, matted and dirty. He moved with a pathetic, listless energy. We need to document this properly, Jake said, pulling out a video camera. If we're going to report them for animal neglect, we need clear evidence. We spent the next hour recording Max's condition and behavior. The evidence was damning, malnourished, stressed, completely isolated. The question is, Jake said as we reviewed the footage, do we go through official channels or take direct action? What do you mean by direct action? I mean, we get your dog back today, right now, while they're out. That would be stealing. No, that would be rescue. There's a difference. Jake had always been more decisive, more willing to bend rules. But I'd never considered just taking Max back. What if they call the police? Let them. We have documentation of neglect. Any reasonable person would understand why we acted. I thought about it for several minutes, weighing the risks against the certainty that Max was suffering more with each passing day. How would we even do it? I asked. Simple. We wait for them to leave again. Then we ask one of the neighbors for help. Offer to pay them to let us into the yard to get your dog back. It sounded crazy, but as I watched Max through the fence, listlessly lying by his empty food bowl, crazy started to seem reasonable. The Hendersons returned around noon, so we decided to wait until they went out for dinner. In the meantime, Jake and I visited 3 different neighbors on their street, explaining I was Max's original owner and showing them the evidence. Mrs. Peterson was immediately sympathetic. I was wondering when someone would do something about that poor animal, she said. Those people don't deserve to have a dog. Mr. Collins was more cautious, but agreed Max appeared to be suffering. If you can prove he belonged to you originally, I don't see why you shouldn't take him back, he said. The third neighbor, a teenager named Tyler, who lived 2 houses down, was the most helpful. I've been watching that whole situation, Tyler said. My mom's been saying we should call animal control. Those people never walk that dog or play with him or anything. Would you be willing to help us get him back? Jake asked. Tyler looked interested. What did you have in mind? Jake explained our plan. Tyler agreed to help for $200. His parents were out of town, leaving him home alone. The Hendersons usually go out for dinner on Saturday nights around 6, Tyler said. They're always gone for at least 2 hours. We waited. At exactly 6:15, the Hendersons' car pulled out of their driveway. Jake, Tyler, and I walked quickly to the backyard gate. Max, I called softly through the fence. His reaction was immediate and absolutely heartbreaking. He started whimpering, pawing at the fence, recognizing my voice, becoming increasingly agitated with excitement. Tyler unlocked the gate from his side yard. The moment I stepped into that yard, Max went wild with joy. He jumped on me, licked my face, made sounds I'd never heard him make before, a combination of whimpering, barking, and what could only be described as crying. Hey, buddy, I said, kneeling down, hugging him close. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Up close, his condition was even worse. He'd lost at least 15 pounds. His collar was too loose, his coat rough and dry. But worse than his physical state was his emotional state. He was trembling uncontrollably, desperate for attention. Jake was documenting everything with his camera while I unclipped Max's chain and attached his old leash. We need to move fast, Jake said. Tyler, can you lock that gate after we leave? No problem, Tyler said. Then his expression changed. Guys, we have a problem. I looked up. Headlights. Turning into the Hendersons' driveway. They were home early. Go, 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 Jake whispered urgently. But it was too late. Mr. Henderson was already getting out of his car. He could see us through the kitchen window. Hey, he shouted, running toward the back door. What are you doing in my yard? I picked up Max, who was still trembling with excitement, and headed for Tyler's yard. But Mr. Henderson was faster. He caught up with us just as we reached the gate. Put that dog down right now, he demanded. You're stealing my property. I'm rescuing my dog from neglect. I retorted, not stopping. Tyler, you're in big trouble. Mr. Henderson yelled at the teenager. I'm calling your parents and the police. Go ahead, Tyler said defiantly. My parents will want to see the videos of how you've been treating this dog. Mrs. Henderson and the kids had come outside now. Mom, what's happening? The younger child asked. This man is trying to steal our dog. Mrs. Henderson shrieked. This man is trying to save his dog from abuse. Jake corrected, stepping between me and Mr. Henderson. I kept walking towards my car with Max in my arms, but I could hear the argument escalating behind me. By the time I reached the street, both families were shouting. Neighbors were starting to come outside. Jake caught up with me just as I was putting Max into my car. Drive, he said. I'll deal with this. But I couldn't leave Jake to face the consequences alone, and I realized that running away would only make us look guilty. No, I said. We're going to finish this right here, right now. I turned to face the Hendersons, still holding Max protectively. You want to call the police? I challenged. Let's call them. Let's also call animal control and the local news. Let's have everyone see how you've been treating this dog. Mr. Henderson's confident expression faltered. We've been treating him fine. Really? When was the last time you walked him? When was the last time your children played with him? When was the last time he was inside your house? Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable. Dogs are supposed to live outside. Not this dog, I said. This dog has slept in a climate-controlled bedroom every night for 8 years. This dog has never been chained up or left alone for more than a few hours. More neighbors were gathering. Mrs. Peterson spoke up first. I can confirm that dog has been barking constantly since they got him, she said. And he looks much thinner than when they first brought him home. Mr. Collins nodded. I was planning to call animal control myself. The poor thing seems miserable. The tide was turning. But I knew the real test was coming when the authorities arrived. Mr. Henderson did call the police, just as my own family arrived on the scene. Danny must have been tracking my location through social media, because he showed up with Carol and Frank just as the patrol car pulled into the street. What is going on here? Carol demanded, marching over. Leonard stole our dog. Mrs. Henderson shouted immediately. Leonard rescued his dog from neglect. Jake countered. Officer Williams, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked at the gathered crowd and sighed. Okay, everyone, take a step back. Let's sort this out calmly. She asked each party to explain. The Hendersons claimed theft. I explained the forced sale and neglect. Do you have any proof of ownership? Officer Williams asked me. I pulled out my phone, showed her photos of Max from 8 years, vet records in my name, receipts for his food. And you have proof of purchase? She asked the Hendersons. Mr. Henderson looked uncomfortable. We paid cash. We don't have a receipt. Who did you buy the dog from? His family, Mrs. Henderson said, pointing at Carol and Frank. Officer Williams turned to my parents. Did you sell this dog to the Henderson family? We did, Carol said firmly. Leonard was unable to care for him properly due to work commitments. Is that true, sir? Officer Williams asked me. Absolutely not. I was away for 3 days at a mandatory work conference. I never agreed to sell Max, and I've been his primary caregiver his entire life. He lives in our house, Frank interjected. We had every right to sell him. Officer Williams looked thoughtful. This seems like a family dispute rather than a theft issue. However, I'm concerned about the animal welfare allegations. Would you mind if I examine the dog's living conditions? The Hendersons reluctantly agreed. We all walked to their backyard. Officer Williams took one look at the chain, the empty food bowl, the small doghouse. Then she spent several minutes examining Max himself. This dog is significantly underweight, she said finally. And these living conditions are not adequate for a dog of this size and breed. We've only had him for a week. Mr. Henderson protested. He was thin when we got him. Actually, he wasn't, I said, showing Officer Williams photos of Max from the week before my conference. The difference was shocking, side by side. Officer Williams called for an animal control officer. Within 30 minutes, Lisa Chen arrived. She spent 20 minutes checking Max, taking photos, documenting everything. This animal shows clear signs of neglect, Lisa said finally. Malnutrition, dehydration, stress behaviors, and inadequate shelter. I'm issuing a citation for animal neglect and recommending immediate removal of the animal from this property. Mrs. Henderson burst into tears. We tried our best. We've never had a dog before. Then why did you buy a dog if you didn't know how to care for one? Jake asked. Your son's family said he was easy to take care of. Mr. Henderson snapped, pointing at me. They said he mostly took care of himself. I stared at my family in disbelief. You told them Max takes care of himself? Carol looked defensive. We told them he was a good dog who didn't require much maintenance. He requires daily walks, regular feeding, fresh water, social interaction, and indoor shelter. I exclaimed. He's a living being, not a lawn ornament. We didn't know, Mrs. Henderson said weakly. Officer Williams made the final decision. Given the evidence of neglect and the dispute over ownership, I'm releasing the animal to Mr. Martinez pending resolution of the ownership question. The Hendersons have 24 hours to provide proof of legal purchase, or ownership will revert to Mr. Martinez by default. As we prepared to leave, a car pulled up that made my stomach drop. Sarah. She got out, looking furious. Leonard, I heard from your mother that you were getting arrested for stealing a dog. What is wrong with you? I'm not getting arrested, I said quietly. I'm getting my dog back. This obsession has gone too far. Look at yourself. You're holding up traffic, disturbing the peace, and alienating your entire family over a pet. Over my best friend, I corrected. Sarah looked around at the crowd of neighbors, police officers, family members, all gathered because of what she clearly saw as my unreasonable behavior. I can't do this anymore, she said. When you decide to start acting like an adult instead of a crazy person, call me." She drove away, leaving me standing in the street with Max in my arms, feeling like I'd lost everything except the one thing that mattered most. But then Tyler, the teenager who'd helped us, spoke up. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing," he said. "That dog was miserable here." Mrs. Peterson nodded. "Sometimes you have to fight for what you love, even when other people don't understand." Even Officer Williams offered a small smile as she got back into her patrol car. "Take good care of him," she said. As the crowd dispersed, I realized I was facing a choice. I could try to repair my relationships with my family and Sarah by compromising on Max. Or I could accept that standing up for what I believed in might cost me those relationships. Looking down at Max, who was finally calm and content in my arms, the choice was obvious. Some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The next 24 hours changed everything. By Sunday morning, the Hendersons had decided not to pursue ownership of Max. Officer Williams told me they realized they weren't equipped to care for a dog and didn't want to face criminal charges for animal neglect. But the real vindication came when Tyler's mother returned from her weekend trip. Mrs. Henderson, a journalist for our local newspaper, was outraged by the story. "This is exactly the kind of irresponsible pet ownership that leads to animal suffering," she told me. "Would you be willing to go on record about what happened?" The story ran on the front page of the Tuesday paper. "Family sells man's beloved dog while he's away on business." Mrs. Anderson had interviewed neighbors, animal control officers, and even gotten a quote from the veterinarian who examined Max after I brought him home. The article painted a clear picture of neglect and family betrayal that resonated with readers. By Wednesday morning, the newspaper's website had over 500 comments, almost all supporting me and condemning both the Hendersons and my family. The story was picked up by regional news stations, and by Thursday, I was getting interview requests from pet advocacy groups. It had touched a nerve, but the real justice came in the form of consequences. The Hendersons faced formal animal cruelty charges. They were banned from owning pets for 5 years and had to pay over $3,000 in fines and court costs. My family faced a different kind of justice, social consequences that hit them where it hurt most. Danny's ex-wife, Jennifer, called him after reading the article. "I can't believe you sold Leonard's dog to buy phones for the girls," she said, a conversation I overheard because he had her on speaker. "What kind of example does that set?" "It's not that big a deal," Danny protested. "It is a big deal. You taught them it's okay to sell someone else's beloved pet for money. How would you feel if someone sold your car while you were out of town?" "That's different." "No, it's not. Emma and Sophie are going to return those phones, and you're going to figure out another way to buy them what they need." Jennifer hung up, leaving Danny staring at his phone in disbelief. Carol faced even worse consequences. She worked as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic. When her coworkers learned what she'd done, the backlash was immediate and severe. "How could you work around animals every day and still think it was acceptable to sell your son's dog without his permission?" her supervisor, Dr. Martinez, asked her. "I didn't think it was that serious," Carol maintained. "You didn't think it was serious to betray your son's trust and cause an animal to suffer neglect? Perhaps you should consider whether you're suited for a career in animal care." Carol was eventually forced to take unpaid leave while the clinic decided if her actions were compatible with their values. Frank faced consequences in his social circles. He belonged to a men's bowling league where several members were dog owners. When the story spread, his teammates were not sympathetic. "How do you look at yourself in the mirror after doing something like that to your own son?" his bowling partner asked him, a detail Frank later confessed to me. But the most meaningful justice came from an unexpected source, Danny's daughters themselves. Emma and Sophie had been following the story online, reading hundreds of comments from people horrified by what their father and grandmother had done. They began to understand they had been complicit in causing serious harm. On Friday evening, exactly 1 week after I'd brought Max home, Emma and Sophie showed up at our house with their new phones in hand. "Uncle Leonard," Emma said, her eyes red from crying. "We want to give these back." "We didn't know that's what happened to Max," Sophie added. "Mom explained it to us, and we feel terrible. Dad told us you couldn't take care of Max anymore because of work," Emma continued. "He never said he was selling your best friend to buy us phones." I sat down with my nieces on the front porch, Max lying contentedly at my feet after his evening walk. "I understand you didn't know the whole truth," I told them. But I want you to learn something important from this. What? Sophie asked. When someone you love has something that's precious to them, you protect it. You don't sell it or give it away or treat it like it's disposable. Love means protecting what matters to the people you care about. Emma nodded solemnly. We're going to tell Dad we don't want the phones anymore, and we're going to get jobs to buy our own phones, Sophie added. So this never happens again. They left the phones on my porch and walked home, leaving Danny to explain to Carol why his daughters were suddenly refusing the gifts that had cost Max's happiness. Frank was the first family member to offer a genuine apology. He found me in the backyard on Saturday morning, watching Max chase squirrels for the first time since his ordeal began. Son, I owe you an apology that's bigger than anything I can put into words, he said. I looked up at my father, this man I'd respected my entire life, and saw something I'd never seen before, genuine shame. I failed you as a father, Frank continued. I let your mother and brother convince me that selling Max was reasonable, and I didn't stand up for what I knew was right. Why didn't you stop them? Because it was easier to go along with them than to deal with the conflict. But that's not an excuse. You trusted me to protect what mattered to you while you were away, and I betrayed that trust. Frank sat down next to me on the porch steps. How can I make this right? He asked. You can't, I said honestly. Max suffered for a week because of decisions you made. I felt completely alone and betrayed by my own family. Some things can't be undone, but can they be forgiven? I thought about that for a long time. Frank had made a terrible choice, but unlike Carol and Danny, he seemed to genuinely understand the magnitude of what had happened. Maybe, I said finally, but things can't go back to the way they were. Frank nodded. I understand. I just hope you'll give me a chance to prove that I've learned from this mistake. Carol took longer to come around. For 2 weeks after the newspaper story ran, she maintained that everyone was overreacting. But the social isolation she faced eventually wore her down. Her friends stopped inviting her to lunch. Her coworkers treated her coldly. Neighbors she'd known for years crossed the street to avoid her. The community had decided her actions were unforgivable, and she was experiencing the consequences. Finally, on a rainy Tuesday evening, she knocked on my bedroom door where I was working on my laptop with Max sleeping at my feet. Leonard, can we talk? I looked up at this woman who had raised me, who had taught me to walk and talk and read, and felt a complicated mixture of love and disappointment. What do you want to say? Carol sat down in my desk chair, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen her. I wanted to say that I'm sorry, she said quietly. Not because everyone is mad at me, but because I hurt you in a way I never intended to hurt you. But you knew it would hurt me, I pointed out. That's why you did it while I was away instead of talking to me about it first. You're right. I knew you'd say no. So, I decided it was easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Except you never asked for forgiveness. You told me I was being dramatic and that I should get over it. Carol was quiet for a long moment, watching Max sleep peacefully. I think I convinced myself that you'd adjust, she said finally. That you'd realize it wasn't as important as I thought it was. But it was important. Max isn't just a pet to me, Mom. He's family. I understand that now. Watching how miserable you've been, seeing how happy he is to be home, reading all those comments from people who think I'm a monster. I understand now that I was wrong about everything. It was the first real apology she'd offered, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. I don't know how to fix this, she continued. I don't know how to undo the damage I've done to our relationship. You start by accepting that Max is non-negotiable, I said. He's part of my life permanently, and anyone who wants a relationship with me needs to accept that. I accept that, Carol said immediately. I accept all of it. Danny was the last holdout, maintaining until the very end that he'd done nothing wrong. But when his daughters refused to speak to him for 3 days, and when his ex-wife threatened to limit his visitation rights if he didn't make amends, he finally appeared at my door. I still think everyone overreacted, he said by way of opening. But I'm sorry it turned out the way it did. It wasn't a real apology, but it was as close as Danny was capable of giving. I accepted it for what it was and moved on. The most unexpected consequence of the whole ordeal was a call I received from Dr. Martinez at Carol's veterinary clinic. Mr. Martinez, I've been following your story in the news, she said. I wanted to reach out because we're looking for someone with your passion for animal welfare to join our team. What do you mean? We're creating a new position focused on community education and animal advocacy. After seeing how you fought for Max, I think you'd be perfect for the role. The job offer was unexpected, but it felt like a sign that something positive could come from all the pain. I accepted the position and found my calling in helping other people navigate animal welfare issues and protect their beloved pets. 6 months later, I moved into my own apartment with Max, finally achieving the independence I'd been working toward. The ordeal had taught me that some relationships aren't worth preserving if they require you to compromise your core values. Sarah never called back, and I eventually realized that someone who couldn't understand my bond with Max wasn't someone I wanted to build a future with anyway. Jake became my closest family relationship, the one person who had stood by me when it mattered most. Frank and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, with new boundaries and a deeper understanding of what trust really meant. Carol worked hard to regain my respect, supporting my new career and even volunteering at animal shelters to better understand the world she'd dismissed for so long. Danny and I maintained minimal contact, enough to preserve family unity, but not enough to risk further conflict. Emma and Sophie grew into thoughtful young women who learned early that actions have consequences and that protecting what others love is a fundamental part of caring about them. And Max recovered completely, regaining his healthy weight and happy demeanor. He became something of a local celebrity after the news story, and I often brought him to community events as an example of responsible pet ownership. Every evening as we walked through our neighborhood, I was reminded of how close I came to losing him forever. But I was also reminded of something more important. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can do is fight for what you love, even when everyone else thinks you're wrong. The bond between a person and their dog isn't something that can be reduced to dollars and cents or easily explained to people who've never experienced it. But it's real, it's powerful, and it's absolutely worth defending. Max taught me that loyalty isn't just something you receive, it's something you give. And sometimes giving loyalty means standing alone against everyone else in your life to protect what matters most. That's a lesson I'll carry with me forever, along with the knowledge that Max and I can face anything together because we've already survived the worst thing I could imagine, being separated against our will. Now, sitting here in our own home, watching Max sleep peacefully in his favorite spot by the window, I know we'll never be apart again. And that makes everything we went through worth it. That I'd love to hear from you about your own experiences. Have you ever had to fight for something you loved when everyone else thought you were wrong? How far would you go to protect your beloved pet? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video if Max's story touched your heart. Subscribe for more stories about the unbreakable bonds between people and their animal companions. And share this video with anyone who understands that sometimes love means fighting battles that others can't comprehend. Thank you for listening to our story, and may you never have to face a choice between the people you love and the animals who love you unconditionally.